Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I'm going to give an example of a context diagram using a popular website or application we all know, which is Amazon, right? I believe we all know what Amazon is for. It's basically a marketplace, right? An online marketplace where people buy things, right? Make payment online and also get it delivered to their house. They choose a kind of payment method, if it is pay on delivery or to pay before delivery, right? So I'm going to draw a context diagram to explain how Amazon interacts with external entities. Now, before I go into talking about the context diagram in detail, first of all, what is a context diagram? And to understand context diagram is best to come from the point of its parent's name, which is data flow diagram. Data flow diagram. And as the name goes, data flow. Just as we say process flow. In process flow, we are looking at the flow of processes within an event, right? But in data flow, we are looking at the flow of data between two or more entities, as the name goes, data flow. So data flow diagram is a modeling technique that is used to show or represent visually how data flows from one entity to the other, right? And there are different types of data flow diagram. These different types of data flow diagram depends on what we call the level of abstraction. Level of abstraction is another name for level of detail, right? Depending on the level of abstraction we want to go, that will determine the type of data flow diagram we are going to do. Now we have level 0. The level starts from level 0. Sorry? Was someone talking? So the level starts from level 0. Then we have level 1. We have level 2. I've not seen where level 3. I've not seen the level 3 diagram because I don't think we even need to get to level 3. But the most people get to most times is level 2. Sometimes they stop at level 1. But level 0 is where context diagram comes in. Now, let me give an example of this level from what we all know naturally. I believe virtually all of us here have flown an aeroplane, right? We've traveled by air in one way or the other. Now, when you are at the airport and you just boarded, right? Or you boarded you boarded the in the aeroplane, right? And the aeroplane takes off. Aeroplane flies into the sky, and let's say 15-20 minutes into the journey, you realize that you are above the clouds and you're moving. You basically cannot see anything that's happening in Earth, right? Now, assuming you are flying to Johannesburg or you're flying to Abuja from Lagos, when the air hostess begin to make an announcement that we've entered Abuja airspace and all of that, blah, 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 and we should be landing in the next 20 minutes or in the next 15 minutes. Now, you realize that when the plane will gradually start descending from that altitude it is. And when it breaks away from the cloud, coming down, not landing now, but just trying to descend, reduce this altitude, you realize that you can basically see, if you are looking at Abuja from that place, you can see almost 80% of Abuja landmass from that high altitude, right? So we call it like an helicopter view or a bird's eye view. So from there, you can see probably all of the road networks, how Kubwa and Kuje and Area 1, all of those road networks, how everything is linked together. You can see everything. You can see all of them just with one look, right? I want to know if you guys agree with me on this or you've experienced this before. So you can see so many interconnections of places within that city. while you are in that high altitude. Now, if the pilot descends further, maybe let's say at that point you are like at maybe 800 whatever above sea level, and then you come down to probably 300, you realize that the extent of what you can see is reduced, right? You are now seeing details. At first, you might just be seeing green trees and top of roofs, right? But when you descend, you might start seeing streets and pathways and roads, right? When you now come down, you will now start seeing houses and how colors of houses and everything. So that is what level 0, level 1, and level 2, how they have been explained. In level 0, which is the context diagram, we are not focused on details. We are not seeing the details of whatever thing is happening between the different entities. But we are seeing on a high level how they are being connected from a high level, from a bird's eye view. Now, when we now go to level 1, we begin to see more details in terms of how this data we collect from this external source, where do we store them, right? This data that we collect from a user, where do we store it? This data we send to our customers, where do we fetch it from? Those are the things we start looking at in level 1. In level 2 is now where we now start looking at this data we are sending to customer. In what format do we send it to customer and all of that? So you begin to go into those level of details as you come from level 0, level 1, level 2. So that is just a quick summary of what data flow diagram is. But today we are looking at context diagram, right? And I made mention that context diagram gives us a high level overview of how data flow in and around the system in question vis-a-vis the external entities. Now, there are special symbols we use for drawing context diagrams. There's what we call the process or the state or the system, which is like a big box. So let's say this is Amazon. This is what Amazon. Let's take this to be Amazon, right? So this is the Amazon system, the application itself. Now, other systems, external entities, we use what we call we use the rectangle to represent external entities. Now, who are the various external entities that interact with Amazon? There are several of them, but just for the sake of the class explanation rather, these are the ones we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be looking at the buyer, right? The buyer interacts with Amazon by looking at the website, looking at items and all of that. We have the merchants. So we have the merchants, right? Merchants are the ones that place items you want to sell, right? Then we have another external entity that we can call logistics or delivery. So let's just call it logistics. Then we have the last one for the purpose of this explanation, we'll call it payment processor. So the ones that help to process payments for Amazon. They could be using PayPal, they could be using Swift, they could be using maybe Paystack, as the case may be, or InterSwitch, anyone. So you call them payment processor. They help to process our payments, right? Now, how does these 4 entities, how do they interact with Amazon? What kind of data do they send to Amazon? And what kind of data will the Amazon application or solution be sending to them? Now, we are not going into details because it's a context diagram, but rather we are going what high level. Now, for the buyer, but to show the flow of data, that's where we now introduce what we call the arrows. We use our arrows to explain the flow of data. So let me use this arrow here. Let me draw this arrow into here to try to make this look nice. Let me draw another arrow into, oh no. Let me take this. and draw it into here. So this arrow that goes from Amazon to this entity here shows this is the data that is going to be coming from Amazon to this entity. And the arrow that points from this entity into Amazon will help to show us the data or information that will be going from this entity into Amazon. So this is what Amazon will be sending out, and this is what Amazon will be receiving. And this is what this entity will be receiving, and this is what this entity will be sending out. That is what we call data flow, the flow of data, right? Now, for this entity buyer, what?
So I think Chinese asked a question.
Okay.
She was asking, she's asking, why can't we use a two-edged arrow?
A two-edged arrow that has two tails.
Yeah.
That has two heads, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't use that because we are not sure of. For instance, now if I used a two-edged arrow, whereby this one is also we have head here, we have head here. You wouldn't know which of the data is coming from where and which of the data is going where. Do you understand? That's why I have to use one arrow to explain that this is the flow from here to here, and this is the flow from here to here. You realize that the data that Amazon will be receiving is different from the data that the buyer will be receiving.
Yeah.
So now let's look at the data that Amazon will be receiving. Let me just make this here. Oh, fine, awesome. So what kind of data would Amazon be receiving? I mean, what kind of data will the buyer be sending to Amazon? Things like the personal information, right? Which they are going to use to log in, right? So things like personal information, things like their financial detail, like that is their card information, right? So things like reviews. When you finish buying, you can rate and review the item or your buyer experience. So things like personal information that they use to log in, right? Used to create the account rather, are the things that the buyer would send to will provide to Amazon, right? Things like financial detail, maybe their card details if they want to do online transactions rather than doing payment on delivery, or even though it is payment on delivery and they come to the app to consent that they have received the item, Amazon automatically initiates the transaction with the payment processor, and their account is being deducted and all of those stuff. So on a simple form, right? Straightforward, personal information, financial detail, reviews, right? Now, what kind of information would Amazon now be sending to the buyer, right? So let me reduce this guy here. Yep. So the kind of information that Amazon will be sending to the buyer are things like delivery information, right? So when an item is being purchased, Amazon sends delivery information to them. Things like item information, item or this word is going away. Inventory, item inventory. Let me use item inventory. Things like transaction information, right? Transaction information. That is when the transaction happens on their card, they get that information. So these are like the things that Amazon will be sending to the buyer, and these are the things that the buyer will be providing to Amazon. Are we getting at least some sort of idea of how this context diagram flows?
Yeah.
Chineza, how about you?
As in perfect. I understand it.
So yeah. How about you, Precious and Sheung and Ikechukwu?
Yes, clearly, Jenny.
Yeah, good.
So now let's do for I'll allow you guys to give me the suggestions for the what do you call it now? The logistics, or should I say the delivery. What kind of information would Amazon be sending to the logistics entity? Who can give me an idea? I need suggestions now.
The
Customer information.
buyer's address.
Customer information.
And yes,
And the
which is
product.
buyer's information, right?
Yeah.
Buyer's information.
The product.
What else
specific-
again?
Product. The product.
That is
Delivery.
purchase info, right?
Your purchase info.
Delivery information too. No, so, yeah.
Yeah, the destination, and
The date for delivery and all that.
Which is the purchase information of the
Purchase
purchase, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The purchase information will include the item that was purchased, right? The quantity of the item as well, right? And then the buyer information will include like the buyer's name, the buyer's address, the buyer's phone number. So we are talking about high level here. We don't want to go detail to say to send the buyer's full name, the buyer's address, the buyer's phone number, or thereabouts, right? So purchase information. They are still at high level, right? For the purpose of learning. I just want people to be able to understand what a context diagram is, and I'm glad you are going along. Now, what kind of information would the logistics company send to Amazon? You can give me an instance, an example.
Confirmation of receipt of goods or something. I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it in high level.
It's personal information as well.
No, I'm not sure. Okay,
If
personal
you
information
take delivery of the
Of the
goods,
so you
delivery.
can call it delivery information
Delivery information. Okay.
Yeah.
because it's the delivery information that Amazon is going to send to the buyer.
Yeah.
So the delivery
Yeah.
information comes from the logistics, gets into Amazon, and Amazon sends it to the buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The buyer information comes from the buyer, gets into Amazon, and Amazon sends it into the sends it to the logistics person. This purchase information, right, will come from the process. Is part of the data that will be processed by Amazon, but that will come from the payment processor in terms of transaction information. Do you understand? So that transaction information that is coming from Amazon will process it and then turn into a purchase information. That purchase information will include the item that is being purchased and all of that. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
delivery information, that is what logistics person, just to update Amazon that we've delivered this item to the customer, right? So we've done our own parts. So, and also update Amazon on the date the delivery is going to go out, the time is going to go out, so that Amazon can also send updates to the customer that your delivery is coming tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
By this also time. So that basically just to cover it up, delivery information, right?
Yeah.
Now, for Amazon, so we have Amazon dealing with the merchants, the kind of information that Amazon will be sending to the merchants. So let me just put this here. I want to make this neater so they don't join. Yeah. So, and then the kind of information the merchants also will be sending to Amazon. Right? So what kind of information will the merchant be sending to Amazon? Things like merchant information, right? To create an account. So things like merchant information.
Goods, information of goods.
Yeah, item information. Right? Like to give a description of the item they're selling. Maybe if you're selling the sneakers, so these are sneakers, this is the color of the sneakers, these are the sizes available for the sneakers, all of those information, that is what the merchant will provide, right? Quantity that is available, right? And there's some things when you're buying, you tell you that 5 left, some will tell you that it's out of stock, right? So item information, basically the things that the merchant would send to Amazon, right? on a high level. And what would Amazon be sending to the merchants? Anyone?
Item
Want to give them-
information as well.
Really?
How many been purchased? Yeah, how many have been
The
purchased?
purchase
How many
information, I think.
So
purchase
it's-
information.
yes, purchase information, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can say purchase information, payment information as well, when the payment have been made, right? So that can also come under purchase information. So you can call it payment information. Payment information. Then maybe buyer's review. When a buyer reviews their item, they want to know, see if the
Yeah.
person is enjoying or enjoyed what they bought, right?
Yeah.
Buyer's review. So let's just stop there for now. Now let's move over to what's
Sorry, Genesis.
I think that logistic information as well.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, someone was saying, was that Precious?
I said
Yeah, I
logistic
actually want
information. Okay. Go ahead, Precious. Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, what about the financial detail as in data going from merchants to Amazon?
So merchant, the merchant only want to know that payment has been made, right? Right.
Okay.
So they've bought my product, so they purchase information. So they just want to know that they bought my product. If the person bought it through payment on delivery or through card, the merchant is not concerned about that, right? You just want to know that my item has been bought and payment has been made to me, like a notification of alert.
So
That's right. Now for
Sorry, what of logistics information?
for logistics, pretty much it's not the concern of the merchant, except maybe the merchant is the one that delivers the
because
goods themselves.
sorry. Yeah, so sometimes the Amazon doesn't hold the product. They don't hold it. The items most times are with the merchants, right? So sometimes Amazon have to send the logistics information or the logistics company that will pick up those items and the quantity and everything to the merchant to say this logistics company is picking up this quantity that has been bought from the buyer.
Okay, that makes sense. So we can add it to the list and say logistics information. So now the next one will not be the payment processor, right? So let's draw something from here to here. I'll just move this one. I'll just move this here. And then from here, let's take this here. And I'll just move this a bit here. Now, this is so, right? So we're going to look at what kind of information comes from Amazon to the payment processor, right? So we can come here and say things like, oh, no. So things, can you give me a minute, please? All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the payments processor, what kind of information would Amazon be sending to them? Anyone have an idea?
The buyer's
Financial detail.
Financial details, yeah.
What other thing? Then the
amount or something.
The amount, yes. Amount. Item amount, or should I say transaction amount? Then for the payment processor, what kind of information would they be sending to Amazon?
This is still buyer info. They have customer information.
So things like transaction status, if the transaction was successful or not, right? So you can call it transaction information.
Okay, transaction information. Okay.
So they only just to process the payments. They don't want to know who the customer is or who the customer is. Did the payments, did it go successfully or did it not go successfully? So if it is successful, the payment processor will let Amazon know, and Amazon will now go into informing the customer that the payment has been successful and all of that. And it's that same transaction information that the payment processor gives to Amazon that Amazon will use to notify the customer that your purchase was successful from this transaction information. So this is just an example of a context diagram. I believe this is helpful for you guys to start drawing in your projects, right?
Yeah, very helpful.
Very helpful.
Okay.
Well,
do you have any questions before?
Yeah, for
so
logistics.
Is this as simple as this, or are they more complex ones?
They're not complex. It's just context diagram, high level.
This is how it is. Okay, high level.
Simple. Just for you to, what you need to ensure is first understand what is the system. Those of you that are working on the e-voting solution, the e-voting is a system. So e-voting will be here that we have Amazon. Now, who are the various entities that will be interacting with e-voting? We have the admin, right? We have the EMC, and we have the eligible voter, right?
And then you have
eligible voter.
Basically,
so what kind of information would eligible voter be sending to admin? Login information, right? And what kind of information would we be sending to the e-voting system? Login information, right? And what kind of information will the system be sending to the eligible voter? System about number of positions, right? Candidate information, voting information, right? Those are the system. Those are the information that the system will send, or data the system will be sending to the eligible voter. So also you do that for the admin and the EMC. For those of us that are doing the e-counseling projects, you ask yourself, the system in question is the e-counseling solution, right? Who are the entities? We have the counselor, the counselee, and all of that. What kind of information would this person be sending to the system? And what kind of information or data would the system be sending? You just represent that. So it gives a high level what the system, how data will flow from different entities into the system and out of the system back to those entities. It's just as simple as this.
Sorry, I don't know if it's needed, but this logistics, I'm thinking additional information that can fall into could be the financial detail of the logistics to Amazon, because they need to make payments for them to ship the goods. They will need to also take their own fee for shipping the goods to the buyers.
Awesome. So things like, you can come here and say invoice. So they can send invoice to Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So they send their invoice to Amazon. Amazon might decide to use this payment processor to process the payment of the logistics, or to use another medium to process the payment for logistics. So it all depends. So nice one. Invoice is part of the things that logistics can also send to Amazon. Thanks. Thanks, Chinese. So that brings us to the end of this. As I said, I want this to be 30 minutes, brief, straight to the point, right? So I'll stop recording now, and then we move straight into